Hey, Laura. I see you in the attendees now. Really enjoyed your presentation earlier. Judy, Donna, Aletta, welcome. We're watching the room fill up with folks, giving it a couple of minutes so you all can join us. Paige, Michelle, Kathy, welcome. Lona, Lois, Lisa, welcome. Judy, Pat, and Tammy. Robin, hello. Sandy, Sarah Schilke, hello. Hello, WRN lady. Penn, Renee, Roberta, welcome. Corinna, Anna, hey Amber, Bonnie. Hey Cam, hello from California. I miss California. Laura, hello. Just give it another couple of minutes, seconds while the room fills up. And Tammy, Tara, hello. Trina, welcome again. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. The E and the I are backwards, so I don't know how to say that. Vicky, Regina, Phil. Welcome everybody. Okay, well, it is my real pleasure to introduce Tricia Selesky. She is the editor of Women Riders Now, and she's going to talk to us about empowering your moto self, how to become a self-sufficient motorcyclist. Thank you so much for being with us, Tricia, and take it away.
Thank you so much, Elisa. Before I start, I really want to thank you and Brittany and everybody that's working behind the scenes that we can't see to make this historical women's event happen in an amazingly quick amount of time. I think I got the email maybe 2 weeks ago. Hey, you want to be part of this event? And of course I said I do, because this has never happened before. It's amazing. And we've had such an incredible cast of characters sharing their stories and their insights. So thank you so much. I think especially now that so many of us have these stay-at-home orders and we're not really sure if we can go out riding or not, it's even more important right now for us to stay connected. And it's really incredible that we have the technology that we can do something like this right now and stay connected to kind of tamper the stress, because this is a time of such stress for so many people. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or next week or the week after. So where normally we'd be getting on our motorcycles to kind of get away from that everyday stress of life, we can't do that. So this way of us connecting is really incredible and empowering on its own. So thank you so much. So as Elisa mentioned, I'm the editor of WomenRidersNow.com, but I also make I make my living full-time in the publishing industry for a motorcycle magazine publisher called TAM Communications, located right here in Connecticut. I'm from Connecticut, and I've been working there for, it'll be 21 years this year. So I'm pretty long-standing in the motorcycle publishing scene. In addition to that, I am also a certified MSF rider coach, and I just love doing that. And I've met so many people on the training grounds of the MSF range that I manage. I'm in Fairfield, Connecticut, so look me up. And I learn just as much from my students as I do, as hopefully they do from me. I just love getting connected with brand new riders and feeling that excitement that I get from them. And one thing that I've learned is that we all have something special to share. Nobody's an expert at anything. We all have something to learn. And if you could take anything away from all of these workshops throughout this weekend, it's that being a lifelong learner is where it's at. Always keep your mind open to learn something more, and just take away important lesson that you can get from another person. So for my presentation, I'm talking really about how it's time to take the lead now. So many of us can fall into that comfortable place of letting somebody else lead the ride, right? You could take that as a metaphor or literally. It's comfortable and it's easy, but we have an opportunity right now to reinvent ourselves, right? So reinvention is the key phrase for this conference. So right now we can use all of these things that we're learning and the stories that we're hearing to turn our Moto selves into something really powerful. So in my workshop, I'm going to encourage you to take charge of your own motorcycle dreams and your desires, and identify what you've already done, and give yourself a lot of credit for that, because we're all here right now. We've done a lot. So kudos to that. I know a lot of you out there have done some amazing things that I don't even know about. So take credit and then start thinking about doing something else, like going outside of your comfort zone. I'm going to talk about care and maintenance of your own motorcycle, because it happens to be something that I enjoy doing and I like writing about. So I hope that I inspire some of you to work on your motorcycle if you haven't done it, or maybe you have, or maybe you have no desire to. But remember, we're lifelong learners. So hopefully you can come away with something that you can put in your toolbox. I want you to be inspired to further your commitment to motorcycling. Again, I want to get your wheels turning about how you can influence other people. And prepare for the next time we ride. Get ready for the next step, whatever that is. We don't know. I don't know. So a little bit about me and my history. So I just always remember being drawn to motorcycles, even as a little kid. You know, you hear the motorcycle coming down the street, and I was always, for some reason, it's in me. That passion is part of me. So I'd hear a motorcycle and I'd look. I loved putting the playing cards in my bicycle spokes to make that motorcycle-y sound. And you know, I was so excited about motorcycles, and I didn't really have anybody nearby. You know, I know a lot of guys in my generation grew up with dirt bikes. I never had that opportunity. But I did have an uncle who rode, and he was somewhat of an influence, because I was around motorcycles some of the time. And then my father got a motorcycle when I was a teenager. So every chance I would get, I would ask him for a ride. And I loved just being on the back and feeling the freedom. And when he wasn't around, I would sneak into the garage and sit on his Honda motorcycle, and I would pretend like I was riding it, and just dreaming about the day that I could ride myself. So, I graduated high school, went to college in Manhattan, and I wasn't thinking about motorcycles in Manhattan. I'm one of those people, like Portia said yesterday, worst place to ride. I know a lot of people do, but I had no desire to ride in Manhattan. So once I graduated college, I moved to Connecticut, and I found out that there was a class you could take to learn how to ride. And I was, you know, I signed right up. And that was the first thing I did when I got my first job out of college. I learned how to ride. And I like to tell people that while a lot of it did come naturally to me, for whatever reason, maybe because I rode bicycles a lot, I was 1 point away from failing. I racked up so many points on the test because I got that test anxiety that I see so many of my own students get. They, you know, you do so well through the whole class, and then you get the clipboards out and it's a whole another ball of wax. But I did make it barely. And then I bought my first motorcycle, which was a Honda Shadow 500 that I got used. I found it in the newspaper, and I just loved that bike. My dad picked it up for me because I wasn't about to ride at home myself. It wasn't that crazy. And I just remember riding circles in his driveway for days and days and days because I didn't have the bike registered or anything like that. I couldn't get onto the road yet. So I got really good at those slow speed maneuvers that I now have to teach in my classes all the time. So that was my first bike. My second bike, I moved up to a Honda Shadow 750 a few years later. And I had my first job out of college. I was doing what I do now. I was an art director at a magazine publisher, but I was kind of bored at that job. It wasn't, you know, it was trade magazines, fashion. I wasn't really into it. So I just so happened to go for, you know, I found the Classified, went for a job for an art director, and I get there and lo and behold, it's a motorcycle magazine publisher. I didn't even know that it existed in Connecticut. I thought they were all out in California. So naturally, I applied and I got the job. And so my first job, I was art director for Motorcycle Tour and Cruiser magazine, which I have right here. And that's me on the cover. So back in the day, this was the magazine. And since then, it went through many evolutions throughout the years. I've been at TAM Communications for 21 years now almost. So it went from Motorcycle Tour and Cruiser to Road Bike. Hopefully some of you guys remember Road Bike. I loved that magazine. And again, me on the cover riding a Kawasaki Ninja 1000 that I think Jan Plessner was on that press intro. And then Road Bike, years later, became Motorcycle Rides and Culture. And there's me riding a Harley Street 750. Of course, I picked out all the magazines that I'm on the cover of my own magazine. So, and all the while, TAM Communications flagship magazine, which is what I work on now today, is American Iron magazine. So this, you can still subscribe. You can still pick it up at newsstands, although now, you know, nobody's going out anywhere. So please subscribe. So my job as the art director is basically, it's laying out the stories. It's doing a lot of photo retouching, checking art, preparing files for print, that kind of thing. But I was lucky when I started this job because as an enthusiast and a creative person, I'm a pretty decent writer too. So I was given the opportunity to review gear. So that was what I did first. I got some boots and gloves and jackets, and I started writing reviews of gear. And then eventually I started doing some tech and how-to articles. I would take the picture, I'd do the work, take the pictures, lay it out, and do all the retouching and everything. So it was kind of like a one-woman show. Then some years later, I got to go on some motorcycle tours, some press tours, and write about that, which was super fun. I have so many great experiences that I would love to share all of them, which I did in print, actually. and probably the most fun, the cream of the crop, what everybody in the office always fights over, is to go on the new motorcycle press intros. So I'm going to share my screen now. Okay, so here's an example from one of the dozens and dozens of press intros that I've gone on. This was, I forgot what year this was, but it was when the Triumph Tiger 800 came out. And this is, I'm pulling this up because this is a good example of a typical press intro. Okay, we're talking about a very male-dominated industry here. So one female moto journalist to about 20 male moto journalists is about normal. Even today, it's once in a while there's maybe one other woman with me riding. So really when I started going on these intros, I was a good rider, but totally intimidated by these guys who have been riding and writing for years and years and super talented. And they were all great. I mean, I learned a lot. just from writing and just hanging out with some of these fantastic moto journalists. But I had to really work up my courage as a woman in this industry and build my confidence and skill. With confidence comes skill and vice versa. Okay. And then about 10 years ago, I befriended longtime journalist, colleague, and our women in motorcycling pioneer, Genevieve Schmidt. We met on a press tour in Canada, which is, I don't know if you can see my little arrow here, but that's a picture of us in Canada with mesh over our faces because the bugs were attacking us so badly. So we went on to have a lot of fun. We went on other press trips and together, and we immediately bonded because we were two of a very small handful of women working full-time in the industry. And even though we worked on different publications, we always helped each other out. She would ask me for some of my ideas, I'd ask her, we'd share photos, we would help each other with photos on tours. Even if we were writing for two separate entities, I would take pictures for her and she'd take them for me. So this is how, you know, this is what women in particular do. We help each other out like that. Eventually I started feeding her articles for the website that she founded, womenwritersnow.com. I started feeding her some of the stories that I had written for Road Bike and American Iron that I knew that women would be interested in. And at that point, she really became my mentor, helping me hone my written pieces from the mainstream male-oriented style of writing, which is way too technical and use catchy terms that women never use themselves, to writing more specifically to what women care about and understand. When an opening came up for an assistant editor at WRN, I offered to help her out in my spare time, which eventually led to now me becoming the editor. I still hold my full-time job at American Iron and I still teach on the, you know, on weekends, but I love the work that I do for WRN, so I don't mind spending almost the rest of my time doing that. So here's womenwritersnow.com if you've not seen it. I hope that you visit it and go through some of the stories that we have. Women Writers Now is the #1 resource for motorcycling news, reviews, tips, and stories for women and the men who ride with them. And we celebrated 20 years in business last year, so that makes it the longest running and the most comprehensive resource for female motorcycling anywhere. I really would love for you all to explore all the articles that cover so many facets of motorcycling from the female perspective that I talked about earlier. Okay, back to me. Okay, so what can you do now to emerge as a more empowered motorcyclist? All right, now I'm going to talk about getting into the garage and caring for your own motorcycle. Even if you have no desire to work on a motorcycle, learning how to do it is going to give you the confidence in knowing how your bike works and that you just knowing your bike better. But you might be saying, but my husband takes care of my bike, or my partner, or I send it to the dealer. That's really great, good for you. But do you want to be an empowered motorcyclist? Do you want to be able to handle a problem on your own? I'm not suggesting that you need to learn how to take an engine apart and put it together again, but just getting to know your motorcycle a little bit better, it would be so empowering for you to know when it's time to ask for help. For example, you're riding with your girlfriends, going on a nice, beautiful ride, and you stop for lunch. Go inside, you have your lunch, and then when you come back out, your motorcycle doesn't start. What are you going to do? Well, how cool would it be if you could diagnose the problem and fix it, right? That's what I'm talking about. But you might be asking, I've never worked on anything before, so where do I start? Well, here's the best place to start. This is your owner's manual, okay? If you buy a new bike, you've got an owner's manual under the seat. Hopefully, the dealer pointed that out to you. This little book is very handy and the best place to start because most people don't even read their owner's manual, but there's a lot of good information in here, like maintenance schedules, controls and adjustments that you can make. So I highly recommend pulling this out if you haven't already and just taking a look at that. And if you're having a problem with something, refer to this first. If you want to go one step further and dive a little bit deeper than just common maintenance and checks, you can invest in either a shop manual for your motorcycle, or I happen to love these Haynes service and repair manuals. It comes from England, so you have to sort of convert some of the measurements in it, but it's not hard to do. And what I like about it is that it's fully illustrated, and it's really like takes you through every step of any possible job that you need to do, from changing your brake pads to removing your exhaust. It'll tell you how to remove parts off of your motorcycle and put them back on again. That's important too. And then after that, you could just start reading articles on the internet. So with that, I'm going to share my screen again. So here we have on Women Riders Now, under features, a DIY tech and how-to column. If you don't know what that means, DIY means do it yourself. Okay, that's kind of what I'm talking about here, learning how to do something yourself. It doesn't have to be anything big. In fact, I just posted this story that's right up top here. It's a really super easy project that you can do yourself right now. You can order this stuff called Plasti-Dip online, have it delivered, and start spraying your parts that you want to see a different color. That's super easy, and if you don't like how it comes out, or if it doesn't come out well, you can peel it off. So that's pretty cool. Other articles in this section are just basic maintenance from winter storage, garage tips for women, installing a windshield, and more. So I encourage you to kind of take a look at this section if you're interested in doing some work on your bike. Nothing too incredibly difficult. Other things that you can do, and some of you might recognize this because I stole it from Portia's webinar yesterday, which was awesome. So she pointed out how there's some groups that actually get together and work on their bikes together, or learn how to work on their bikes together. So this is one example of what she was talking about. There's community garages, which I also heard mentioned in I think it was Kirsten's workshop. She mentioned Motor Girl in New York City. Also women's motorcycle clubs like the Misfires and Women in the Wind. I know you guys are out there. They arrange to get together and either learn how to do something together, or they actually work on their motorcycles together. And when you're working on your motorcycles with other people there, it just makes it more fun. So it sounds incredible to me. It also provides you with, somebody to help you out when you get stuck. If you don't know how to do something, or if you don't have the right tool, you can share with the other people that are there. So community garages are interesting. Something that you find more in urban areas than you do, out here in suburban Connecticut. Sometimes riding clubs will also arrange to have how-to sessions that take place either in a member's garage, or they can set it up with a dealership where you can ask to learn how to do something specific. So if you're part of a motorcycle club, you can suggest that you do that with your club if you're interested. And I'm sure any motorcycle dealership would be more than happy to get a group of women, when this is all over, of course, to come to their shop and just see it and, you know, and teach them how to do stuff. So let's talk about tools a little bit. I won't drone on about tools, but where can you get tools? Well, on the left side of this picture is the motorcycle toolkit that came with my wife's SV650, sorry. So that's your basic toolkit, and a lot of bikes come with them, not all, but a lot of the metric bikes come with tools, and it gives you a good idea of which tools are pretty much the most fundamentally used on your motorcycle. And then the toolkit that's in the big picture is a cruise tools on bike kit, and that rolls up really small, and you can put it into a saddlebag, so you have better quality tools, more tools, and you can even use something like this in your garage if you need to, just to get started. One other thing about carrying a toolkit is, even if you don't know how to work on your motorcycle, if you get stranded someplace and you need something done, if somebody stops to help you, they need the tools to get the job done. So if you have the tools with you, you're more likely to get that help. And as you build your motorcycle garage workshop, you'll build up the tools and the supplies that you need to as you conquer each task. So for example, if the first thing you do is going to be doing an oil change, you're going to need to get an oil filter wrench, some oil, obviously, and a couple other supplies. So you'll get those, and then you're going to use them over and over again throughout the years. So you're investing in your motorcycle toolkit. Once you start with the easier jobs, like maybe lubricating parts that move, changing your bike's oil, then you can start to get into harder jobs as you build up your confidence and your skills. Okay, so here is my gratuitous shot of my cute kid, Kaya, who is now 18 years old. So she doesn't look like this anymore, but she's still cute. But the point of this picture is that anybody can start here, right? Anybody can start by washing your bike and detailing it. And when you do that, you're going to start to see like the intricate details of your motorcycle and figure out how things move and work as you're cleaning them. You might even find you have, you know, a missing bolt someplace, or, you know, you'll find problems when you just clean your motorcycle. So here's something you can do yourself today. If your bike's in your own garage, you can wash your motorcycle. All right, I don't even like washing motorcycles anymore. I used to, but now it's like I do it before I have to take a picture of them. It's terrible. But when I got my first bike, I spent probably as much time cleaning it as I did riding it, because I was just so eager to learn everything about it. So one thing that I did learn when cleaning the motorcycle, I learned how things worked and moved. For example, I learned that you could take your shifter off of the spline and make a little adjustment to make that bike fit me a little bit better. I didn't know that you could do that until I actually got in there and started tinkering and figured it out. So that you can change the position of your levers, the position of your handlebar in some cases. Starting with little things like that is a great way to start working on your own bike. Every time I started a new project too, here's something else. I built up my motorcycle toolbox, because every time I did something, I found that I was missing something, or I needed a different part. So it still happens to me, but through the years, I have built up a pretty good collection of tools and supplies. And I found also that better tools and having the right tools make the job much quicker and easier. So back to the magazine. So I was eventually given assignments to go to dealerships or shops and photograph and take notes, while trained technicians did more complicated things like engine modifications and complicated technical jobs. And I learned so much just from watching and asking questions. And this knowledge became part of my mental toolbox. And I always refer to that when I'm working on my own bikes. Just like trying something new, like learning a new skill or an instrument or a hobby, you want to set reasonable expectations for yourself, so that you can set and achieve small goals, which will then build your confidence, which in turn gives you the motivation to set higher goals. And that transcends the garage talk. So some other things that you can do right now to be empowered, and I know that some of this has already been talked about in some of the other workshops. Well, you can read, right? So there's a lot of great books out there about learning new skills and precision riding, things like that. Of course, I want you to read the articles on Women Riders Now too. And you can start to research and plan for taking advanced classes. Okay, here's some examples of some classes that I've taken and taught. There's so many different options for us now. That top left picture of me riding at the BMW Rider Academy is the off-road training. That was my first time riding in the dirt. I was on that big GS motorcycle and I had a blast. I came away from that. I wanted to buy that bike and find some trails. But you know, I'm pretty busy with all my jobs. I haven't had the opportunity to do that yet, but I strongly encourage everybody here who's listening to me to try a different style of motorcycle than the one that they currently ride. When I started riding, I was all cruiser because they look beautiful and cool, and you could wear the, you know, cool chaps and all that stuff. But once I got on, I've had the opportunity to try all these different kinds of motorcycles, and A, you're going to improve your skill for sure, and B, you're going to have a great time just trying out different things, scooters, trikes, just try everything that you can. All right, now I want to just go back to Women Riders Now and just point out, we do have this section called Safe Riding Tips, with more ways that you can just improve yourself as a rider right now without even leaving the comfort of your home. Oh, look at that, it's Elisa right here, Confidence Corner, stretching beyond your comfort zone. Great example of some things that you can do right now to empower yourself. I want you to emerge a more empowered motorcyclist. So I'll stop my screen share. Prepare for the ride yourself. Don't let somebody else pack your bike for you or choose the route that you want to go on. Decide when you're going to stop or how long the ride's going to be. Figure out what you want to do and start to take the steps to make that happen. And you'll be a self-sufficient motorcyclist. I want you to have the courage to do what it is that you want to do. What's stopping you? And one last thing before Elisa jumps in. I highly recommend this book called Boost Your Confidence Through Motorcycling. I love this book. This really does help put into words where we as women are taught to kind of push things back a little bit and be a little bit more timid and not put ourselves out there. But get the book and push past those fears and become a more confident motorcyclist. Ready for you, Lisa.
You're so awesome. No, I just popped in. I thought you were finished. I didn't mean to distract you. We had a couple of questions.
I was wrapping up.
Okay. We have a couple of questions. Laura asked, what name brand of toolkit can she buy for her Ducati to carry in her tank bag or backpack? And where can she buy them? She has no idea what kind to get because she doesn't know anything about tools.
Oh, good question. You know what? I don't know offhand if Cruise Tools has a Ducati specific toolkit. So I'm not sure, but I would I would search Cruise Tools, or just call the Ducati dealership and
How
ask
do you
them.
spell cruise?
It's CRUZTOOLS.
Okay, with a Z.
Cruise, yeah, CRUZ.
Okay,
Yep.
as opposed to CRUISE. That's why I wanted you to spell
Right,
it.
correct.
And will you talk a little bit about why toolkits are different between bikes and?
Oh, sure, yeah. So Harleys use SAE style tools, whereas Japanese bikes like Yamaha, Suzuki, the metric bikes use metric tools. When Victory came along and Indian, they started kind of mixing things up, and you think it's an American bike, so I should be using these SAE tools, but that's not necessarily true. They use a lot of metric tools. So that's why I do recommend that you read the owner's manual and see what toolkit came with the bike to match it up. Harley uses Torx also, and BMW uses Torx tools. So there's 3 different kinds of basic tool sets, so Torx, SAE, and metric. So depending on your bike, you need to know before you buy.
Yeah, and if you've got a BMW, then you need all different size screws and screw heads, and there's so many different parts on those.
Yeah, and nothing's cheap.
Yeah. Judy had a good suggestion, which was buy an empty pouch and fill it yourself after doing some more research.
Sure.
And asking questions from the women experts.
Mm-hmm.
What I can share from my personal experience is that over time, as your skill grows and you have and your writing range grows, your toolkit grows, like you mentioned, you start adding more and more things. Oh, well, somebody showed me how to do a plug, so now I'm going to carry a plug kit. Or
Mm-hmm.
so then you end up carrying 2 panniers full of tools and
Yeah.
no.
And you know what? When in doubt, pack duct tape.
Always, 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 always. And it doesn't have to be a big roll either. Another traveler taught me to wrap it around a pen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a good tip.
Yep. Kathy has an interesting question. If she wanted to try riding something different than a cruiser, what would be your first suggestion?
I would probably suggest a standard motorcycle to
Can you
start.
say what that is? What's a standard?
So a standard is sort of like it's a sportier style, but it doesn't have all the body work in it. A sport bike is one that sits with your feet a little bit back and your arms are in front and you're kind of angled down. But a standard, you're sitting more straight up, so your torso is more like a cruiser position, but your legs are right underneath you. So it's not that big of a difference from a cruiser, depending really what you're used to.
Great, thanks. Sherry Lynn wants to know when do you decide when it's above your ability and to call for backup repair? Sometimes she convinces herself that she can't, and then she doesn't even try.
Well, if you've gone through your toolbox, your mental toolbox, and you've exhausted everything that you can think of, then it's time to call somebody, right?
Do you have any online resources besides the WRN webpage that you look at for brand specific stuff? I know I rode a KTM 950 Adventure for a lot of years, and it's a very specific bike that has very finicky habits. And so the forums really helped me diagnose some things. Do you have any
Yeah.
recommendations along those lines?
You know what? I'm glad that you mentioned forums because I blew past an important point that I wanted to make was when you're seeking out the information to get educated, make sure that you're getting information from a professional source. Like forums are full of advice, just like social media. It's full of all kinds of advice from all kinds of people, and you have no idea what their skill set is. So really, I refer to that's why I go back to the books and the more professional resources.
Laura wants me to explain the duct tape and pen thing. So it's just basically so you don't have to have that huge roll, you know, in your pannier, like that big heavy thing. You just take like a Bic pen, and what I did for my South America trip was I just broke it off, and then I put the duct tape around it. I made it maybe that thick, so then I was carrying something this big instead of this big, you know. So that's what I meant.
So let me ask you a question about that. Does it not get stuck to itself when you do
It
that?
does. It does. You have to be
But
very. It's
but
very
it pulls
tricky.
apart?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You get
It
it.
does. It just gives you a little stash of it. I mean, the other thing you could do is have all your friends, I suppose, save their, you know, last ends of their rolls. So you still got the big thing, but at least you don't have like that much thick tape. You know, you just got because you really don't need that much unless your luggage falls off, and then you're trying to like, which I've
Right.
seen
Oh,
somebody
that's
use duct
happened to
tape.
me.
Yeah.
But I got Gorilla tape because at least it's black, so it's a little
Yeah.
less conspicuous
Yeah.
than silver duct tape.
Yeah, it's more expensive, but I think it
Yeah.
actually does adhere better too.
Mm-hmm.
Erica wants to know, are there places where you can rent a place to work on your bike and maybe they offer some tools?
Well, that's what I was talking about with those community garages. I don't really know a whole lot about them, but I just, I heard some of the other panelists talking about those. Do you know about them, Elisa?
I know there's Moto Girl in New York City,
Mm-hmm.
and in Cleveland there's a DIY place, and they all work a little bit differently. Oh, there's one in Los Angeles too. There's quite a few. That's a good article suggestion
I
for
was just
women.
going to say, this would be a great article for women writers now. So if everybody wants to just throw what they know on the chat or something, then I can compile
Yeah, there you
it.
go. That's a great idea. If you do know of a DIY garage, throw it in the chat here, and we'll save it, and we'll put a list together, and maybe Women Writers Now will hire me to write an article.
You bet.
So Cleveland, Los Angeles, and basically what they do is they the ones that I've talked to, they rent a bench for an hour or two. I think it's like a 2-hour minimum, or you can rent it for a day. I think if you got a long-term project, then some of them have a subscription service, but you can't tie up the lift for months on end without paying for it, because that's how they make their money. But they have community tools. I think there's one in Philadelphia too. Joanne Dawn was telling me. I think her husband was telling me about that in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I'm seeing a lot of a lot of people are posting in the chat, which is awesome.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I'm looking at the Q&A. So you folks keep doing that.
Yeah.
And I'll keep doing this.
Oh yeah, Rising Wolf Garage in New York, Piston and Chain in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Baltimore Motorcycle Collective. So there's some great resources. See, this is the best. This is what I love about this community, is that we are a community, and we are here to like share this information with each other. I love it.
Yeah.
On that topic, can I throw something else out there?
It's your hour. Go right ahead.
Okay, it's my hour. So one of the great things that we do on womenwritersnow.com is we share reader stories. And so I would love to hear all of your stories. Everybody, like I said before, we all have a story. And I would love to be able to share that with other women writers. So if you want to email me your story, there's a place on the website that, let me just look at it real quick. It's if you just go into your stories under clubs and more on the left, pop into one of those, and then right at the top, there will be a link on how to submit your story. So I'd love to hear them all.
Lona is asking, can you name the book again for working on your own bike?
Oh, it's a Haynes service manual. There's also Climber, but I haven't seen Climbers in a while. I'm not really sure if they're still around. So you can Google search Climber, and this one is Haynes, Haynes.
Yeah, if you've got an older bike, a lot you can get the older Haynes and Climbers on eBay. Even it's a good place to buy the old books for the old bikes.
Yeah.
Oh,
somebody says Haynes is great for cars too, if you like to work on cars.
Cool. Lona says thank you. Sherry wants to know, is Cherry or Sherry wants to know, what's your recommendation for recognizing when it's time to move to a new bike?
That's a good question. So it's really, it should be seeping into your your subconscious a little bit. And I think you'll know when it's time to move on, because when you've mastered your skills, when you've mastered that bike and you feel like you just want to do a little bit more, maybe you want to go a little bit faster, or maybe you want to ride a little bit longer and your bike just doesn't have the range that you want it to, it's time to start looking for the next step up. Good question.
And we've got 3 minutes, and this is a perfect question to end with. How often does Women Riders Now magazine come out?
Well, it's an online magazine, and it's there all the time, 24 hours a day. We do have a newsletter that we come out with once a month. We send out a newsletter that just alerts you to the new stories that we've recently published. So it's all free. We depend on advertising support. So if you are a woman who has a woman-owned business, or if you're out there in the motorcycle world and you have a product or a service that you want to get into the most women riders' eyes, check us out, because we are the #1 source.
I'd also like to add to that when you go to a vendor who has advertised on Women Riders Now, it's really important to let that advertiser know that you've found them on WRN, because that type of feedback it feeds the loop, right? The advertisers keep advertising so WRN can keep providing content, and if they don't have that feedback loop, then that whole chain can disappear. And I really feel very strongly that we need to support each other, support women's initiatives in the motorcycle industry, and vote with their dollars, really. The products and services that do well serving customers, reward them with your dollars.
Yeah, well said, Elisa. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tricia, for being with us. And ladies, and the few gentlemen that are with us, if you have enjoyed Tricia's presentation, guess what? You have an opportunity to ride with her on our Suffragist Centennial Motorcycle Ride. Again, providing that we have the opportunity to gather in August. We will be celebrating the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote in the United States. And what better way to celebrate women's right to vote and women's freedom than on the open road together. Tricia is going to be with us from Knoxville to DC. And she's just an inspiration. You'll learn so much from her. I have today. I always learn something new. And I want to acknowledge you for being another one of my early mentors. Tricia gave me a lot of good advice. The first magazine article I ever wrote was for Road Bike magazine. And I don't know if you remember that photo shoot, but you.
Yep, I totally remember that. I
That was
wasn't
my
going to
first.
bring it up, but I think I introduced you to a lot of these women that,
Yeah, you
that you were
did.
giving
You
kudos
did.
to.
Yeah, and thank you so much.
You're
And this,
welcome.
ladies and gentlemen, is what motorcycling community is all about. It's the sharing of resources. And earlier in one of the presentations, somebody, Jan started the day by saying, you know, if you want a job in the motorcycle industry, you know, a lot of it is who you know, and now you know a lot of people, and that's why it's so important to come together and support each other. And thanks for being here. I need to run and get ready for, oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now I can have a drink of wine. I was a little nervous, so I poured myself some wine before the presentation.
That's awesome.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Everybody staying tuned for Hanan. She's going to talk about revving up the spark from within, riding towards total metamorphosis. And she has an unbelievable story. So join us here at 6 o'clock. And I also have another reminder to join us for the rollout session, the general, the connection session at 8 p.m. It's a different format. It's where we all talk to each other. Everybody's, it's not us talking at you, it's everybody talking together. We've got a big announcement, and you probably don't know it, but we have had so many motorcycle industry powerhouse ladies on in the audience today. And so we're going to start up a conversation with them. Many trailblazers in the industry. We had Kim Nupp, we've got Sarah Schilke, we mentioned Sil earlier, Tricia, Genevieve, hopefully you can join us for a little bit. Just so many really wonderful ladies. We'll see you then. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye, Tricia.
Bye.